Beautiful, Rena. I'm going to tell Dr. Ricky what a beautiful job you did with that song. That song always makes me cry. I'm not really happy to cry right before I get it. You know what? That's what it is. Love to each of you this morning, and I bring love and blessings from the entire Agape International Spiritual Center of Truth. As always, I am delighted to be here. The theme that they've chosen for the month is, what is the theme again?
Back to school.
Back to school, back to spiritual study.
Yes.
I sort of assisted with that just a little.
Yes, you did.
So spiritual study is actually something, it's one of our spiritual practices. And it means allowing ourselves to go into the study of, say, sacred texts, sacred consciousness, sacred truth. So this morning, what I'd like to invite us into is to school your consciousness of grace with gratitude. School your consciousness of grace with gratitude. When we do spiritual study, when I say we study sacred texts, what I want to tell you is there's a sacred text within you, which is your own heart, your own divine direct knowingness of the divine consciousness of the I am presence. The I am being the Christed consciousness, the Atman consciousness, the beloved, the one, the wisdom self, the higher knower of your own being. It has many names. Yes?
Yes.
Yes. And we tune into that. We always have the opportunity to go ever more deeply into allowing that to come forward, to be more active in our consciousness and therefore more active in our lives. When I speak to you about schooling your consciousness, I'm using schooling of consciousness in the specific way of having a disciplined consciousness, going to school, discipline, not always everybody's favorite word, oh well. Because you're all here because you want to know more of God. That's why you're sitting in that chair. There's some way that you are seeking a deeper realization, a more direct knowing. It may be that in your life you're seeking to have a realization that will have a translation into some form or another. Many of us are seeking a wonderful realization. It could be in health, it could be in finances, it could be in relationship, it can be in many ways. Do you agree with that?
Yes. Yes.
For some reason today I'm interested in getting quiet. I come from a call and response church, so there we go. The reason why I know it came to me to school our consciousness of grace with gratitude is that gratitude as an active practice, as a significant practice, not just, oh, by the way, and not gratitude just when things are going well. I'm going to say that. Because the more difficult discipline is to, in challenging times, open ourselves up for what am I grateful for? What can I find in this mess? Or this challenge. What is it that's here that is something that I can be grateful for? Now you understand the principle in back of that is that what I focus my attention on magnifies, right? This worked so well for me. This principle worked so well for me 1.5 million years ago when I used to work in the garment industry. As I always say, my husband wants me to call it the fashion industry. He said, garment industry sounds terrible. I said, honey, it was the garment industry. Let's not quibble about this. It was definitely the garment industry. The way that I used it, I was raised metaphysically, so I knew something about thoughts creating things. I used to have that banner up in my bedroom at home when I was a teenager. So I would maybe I was a design pattern maker, which means, and you know that somebody I used to do design patterns for is now goes to Agape. It's really fun. She's been there for a long time. Anyway, it's a trip how we all run into each other. So I would get, the designer would give us a sketch, an idea, or just talk and say, remember when we did that? We're going to do this, and give you a sketch. And so my job was to translate an idea into form. That was my whole job, to do that. What that means is, because it's something new and fresh, certain things are standard, but it also meant that many times I might look at something and while I knew how to make patterns and all of that, this would be something fresh and new. So it meant that the idea of how to get from here to there, right, that path, wasn't always visible to me. And of course, visible. We talk spiritual visibility. This had to be real tangible, visible, so that my pattern maker could then make it and sew it, and it could fulfill itself. But the practice that I always had was, she would give it to me, and I would look at it, we would talk about it, and then I always started with this, and that is, there is something about this that I do know. It may be the smallest thing. It may be, oh yeah, I know how to make ties, dress ties. You know what I'm saying? It would be start with the smallest things. What do I know? What do I know to make that I can start with? And I always started with that. I always started with the easiest thing first, and then I would progress. And I would, of course, have given to my subconscious mind, quote, the challenge or whatever it might be of this coming into form. Now, if I hit that point in making and creating this thing, where I still was unclear about what was next, what I knew is my subconscious was working on it. I'd always been successful up until now. I wasn't real afraid I couldn't do it, let's say it that way. I knew that there was a way to have it happen, and I was grateful for that. So what I would always do, I mean, if I, not on every pattern, but if necessary, you know what, I would take a minute. What I would do is I would just go do something else. If I had to go to a job, or if I had to go down to the production room, if I had to go talk to my sample maker, anything like that, I would know that it was being worked on in consciousness, and I would go away and come back and sure as shooting. Every time I came back, whatever was next came very clearly to me. That was a principle that I used constantly. That was something that I knew always worked. So what we do, what happens in our awareness when we practice our willingness to be grateful for what we do have, for what we know, for the little bit that is appearing in our consciousness, what we know is when we focus on that, more of that comes forward, right? You can say, more of this, please. More of this. Yes? That's a principle that we work on. That's a principle that we practice. The couple of stories that I want to share with you this morning, somebody's going to tell me how long I have. Anyway, I heard, because I have a lot of stories, so the conversation that I was overhearing as I was waiting was about animals. So it is okay if I tell animal stories? Okay, everybody knows that even though we're talking about an animal, this principle holds true for you, right? You, right there, right now, right? Okay. So we're just right now in the middle of having, I'm going to say, a magnificent demonstration for an animal. But I want to back up and tell you where this started. I had a dog. I have dogs. I still have them. And our dog she's a redhead. And so she's fair-skinned, and she loves to lay in the sun. Sunscreen on the dog. Okay, anyway, we took her to the vet, and she had something in her chest. And the vet took the biopsy. He took it right there, he looked at it right there, and he said, because he saw it with his own eyes, he said it's a mast cell tumor, cancer. And he said, so we got to get her in here and get this out as soon as we can. She had something else going on, I don't remember what. So we had to wait a minute, and that's something for you to think about. I want you to consider, because humanly the thought might be, let me get in, let me get this thing off, let's be in a hurry, let's get this done. So, went home, told all my prayer buddies, pray. We're all in prayer. We're going to be in very active divine prayer. So we scheduled the surgery, we take her in. She has an event that I'm going to try not to say what it was, but I probably will later, but it doesn't matter. Where, anyway, she can't have the surgery that day. She had to be put on antibiotics and go home. What I knew right then was that there was a very specific reason that had happened. I remember I was standing in the store when we got the call, coming back and get your dog. And we said, what? And they said, yeah. So we came back, we got her. And I thought, I see what's going on here. We need to really actively, what I knew is what was being called for was even more focused, directed prayer. I knew that it didn't mean anything was wrong. I mean, a person could freak out. I was very, very clear. So we continued to be in prayer. And then we scheduled the surgery again. She went back. She had several places. I'm telling you, she ended up with 26 stitches because she had several places, several things she had to have removed. So they took everything off, they sent it out for biopsy, it comes back, the vet still to this day cannot understand why, and I forgot to look up what it came out, this was no longer mast cell. He still cannot, he still looks at her sideways like, he just cannot fathom how this thing went from this thing to nothing. Because it was nothing to begin with. We stayed focused, we stayed in gratitude. Gratitude always being the first step of prayer treatment for us, the way we teach it. And since you're from Agape, all of you, that's our first step of treatment. You stand in alignment with that which is true, that which is real, that which is beyond all human sense and all human knowing. So somehow it came out was there was a teeny little thing that was in some little part of her foot, and they actually took that whole thing off, and and it's gone, and it's never come back. She had another something that happened recently again, because you don't want all these details, I'm just telling you. She has something else that happened. They were concerned about it. She had to have a surgery consult. This dog lives in grace, I'm telling you. And in the surgery consult, our vet was not the surgeon consulting anyway, and they had to do they were going to have to do a very involved test. But guess what? She, back in the room when she was with them, it happened when she, how would you say that? Evacuated her bowels. That's polite, isn't it?
Yes.
Anyway, so, and that was when we could see something was going on with her. And that happened, of course, back when they had her. And what happened is they could see what it was. They didn't need to do anything. She had a very, very, very minor procedure. And again, all is well, and still my vet is looking at her like, I don't know, this dog. Now, in the midst of this, because I had a whole group of people praying for her, there's another dog who was an abandoned dog, so she's been through a lot. And she had a buddy who she's never met. We're just friends with his mom on Facebook. I mean, we know each other too. And she kept saying, Mr. Bruce is Rosebud's prayer partner. Mr. Bruce is praying for her. He's her prayer partner. And I said, oh, good. So we get through all of this. Well, right now, Mr. Bruce has a physical challenge. And in fact, last week, they were told that she was called to the emergency vet. And in fact, they were told that he was not probably going to make it. He was probably going to have to, whatever was going to happen was going to happen. And I tell you, when I reminded Liz and said, remember, Rosebud is his prayer partner. And I said, and remember, she completely transmuted mast cell cancer into nothingness that has never returned. And I know that when I told Liz that, she heard a lot of life-affirming things, but I know that when she remembered that, oh, yeah! And Rosebud's praying with him. We have a picture on Facebook of Rosebud sitting there with her arms around a picture of Mr. Bruce. It's adorable. So the vet kept trying to tell her that he was not going to be able to make it home. Well, where do you think he is? He's home.
Yeah.
He is home.
Yay.
Now, my sense is, in my prayer time today, because I continue, of course, to treat for him, do my prayer work, and what I heard today through Spirit is what I've heard before. I hear this. I'm a pastoral care minister. I didn't quite tell you that. I have the animal kinship ministry. It's under my direction. But I'm a pastoral care minister, so I work with a lot of people in a lot of these kind of health challenges in a lot of ways. And actually, when my granddaughter was a preemie in the neonatal unit about 4 years ago, I had a similar experience to what I'm going to describe, but I went in to pray with her, of course, and it was like I was possessed by fire, and Spirit said, did I talk about this before? I was possessed by an interior fire. I thought I was going to say a prayer for this teeny little baby, and Spirit said, I have this.
Oh, wow.
This is mine. I have this. This me, it is of my divine design. This is my life. And I thought, oh, that's really good. Okay. But it was so intense, it made me like, wow, okay. And then I thought, yeah, but I'll say a prayer. Started laying down, and the Spirit says, I have this. I have this. Well, of course, once again, she's fine. And when I went to pray for Mr. Bruce today, Spirit said, I'm going to cry because I just had the realization. Spirit said, I am the function of this dog's kidney. You don't need to concern yourself. God is the function of the kidney of this being. So, I have every faith and confidence because he went home, but his kidney function isn't still quite maybe up to what it could be. So they're still loving him and working with him, and he gets to be home, which is a major healing in and of itself for all of us when we get to be immersed and surrounded and loved. So you keep in mind for yourself that divine design of life is for you too. That Spirit has you absolutely established in its own heart, in its own consciousness, and its own love. And that through an active practice of living gratitude, always things can manifest in wondrous and awesome ways that we could never make happen. Mm-hmm. So do I have time for another story? Okay, good. So this story is, I'm hoping that you get a sense of the way the cosmos is orchestrating all of life. I'm going to go back a number of years. Once upon a time, there were two young women. My friend and I were 14. She sat in back of me, H-I-J-K, yeah, anyway, in freshman English in high school. We kind of got to be friends because we had both come to school late in the year that year, so we became friends. And then, of course, after about a year and a half, I moved to San Diego, and she had a sister. Her name was Nancy. Her sister's name was Anita. They moved to Spain, Then come time to go to college, she decided that she was, what did Nancy say to me? Something like, I want to go somewhere where I know somebody, so it's you. And I said, great. So then we, eventually Nancy and Anita and I ended up all being roommates together, a one-bedroom apartment, what you do when you're in college, it's insane. And that was when, so that was when Anita, her sister, met her husband, Doug. And we all hung around together. And so then, fast forward another number of years, and by then Doug and Anita were married. And then, interestingly enough, Nancy had been my friend in high school, and I wasn't that interested in Anita because she was younger than us. So she, but a number of years later, Nancy had moved away. I wasn't in that much touch with Nancy, but it was a fascinating thing, and that is that Doug and Anita didn't live so far from us. Actually, my husband and I lived in Fullerton, they lived in Long Beach. And we ended up having our families at the same time. And so I had 2 girls, and she had 2 boys. And, we had pictures of the 2 kids together. They were 4 months apart, our oldest ones. And I remember that the day that I found out that I was pregnant, for our anniversary, it was our anniversary, my husband's and mine, and we were in this, thank God, we were being chauffeured. My husband got this, not a limo, but, it was just car stuff, so shoot me if he knew that I don't remember what kind of car it was. But what I remember is that Anita at that time was 4 months pregnant with John, and that was the day I found out I was pregnant with Katie, and that was all wonderful. So then again, fast forward a number of years, and the kids, although Doug and Anita moved up to Walnut Creek, we were very good friends with them and saw them all the time, to the degree that Caleb, one of the brothers, he thought that they were cousins, thought we were related. Well, Agape used to always have what we called a dinner dance, and Katie wanted to go as an adult, one time. So she decided to invite John Nieper. And I sat at the table with them, and they went to dance, and I watched them fall in love. Oh. I watched it. And when I have a dear friend who, so they started dating, and so now coming up soon, they've been married 5 years. And they just had their second baby. But I remember at the time that they were getting married, we were getting ready for that, I had a friend, and she told me, she said, all of that from the time that I met his aunt, and all that traveling around that we did, who would have thought that this is what, do you understand? This was a cosmic orchestration. Nobody could have made this happen. For them to find each other, to fall in love, and what my friend Nancy said, not the auntie, another friend, she said it's all for the purpose, for the children that they're going to have. I feel very blessed that we got to see this cosmic orchestration. Because what are the odds, right?
Yeah.
And it wasn't like we all stayed in the same town. That's why I told you they moved to Spain, we all moved to San Diego, and then we all moved from there. And yet there was something bigger at work that was seeking to demonstrate itself as a right relationship of the heart of love. So what I know about that is that that's what God has in mind and in store for each of us. You know, whenever I contemplate this cosmic order of life, and nobody could have made that happen in any of these instances that I told you about, I'm very aware that that cosmic identity that's right in back of all of us, our God identity, our higher knower, our more direct knowingness, do you know what? It's orchestrating everything. It's fulfilling itself and seeking deeper knowing and greater fulfillment in our heart's desire, in our deepest heart's desire. You know, in my daughter's case, I feel especially blessed that we can see how this happened from a bigger perspective. And most people don't have the privilege, but I'm very aware that whether we have the privilege or not, it's what's true. Do you believe that?
Yes.
Yes.
So that, you have to keep that in mind for yourself. So I would ask you to ask yourself, what are you seeking to fund, to fuel, or to fire up in your life? There's something that you are seeking that Spirit is seeking to express through you. A cosmic idea of life. You know, for some people, it is relationship. I know when somebody is seeking to express right relationship of the heart, because I've seen so much, that's a divine idea trying to assert itself and come forward as a benefit and a blessing, not just in that small way, but I watch and see how loving relationships, loving friendships, that's a vibration that lifts all of us cosmically. It lifts all of us cosmically. So where any one of us can demonstrate it, it's demonstrated for everybody. And again, to go back to our animal companions, where they demonstrate health and wholeness, that's an active practice that we can all demonstrate when we're willing to continue to be true to our path, to allow gratitude to take us out of a sense of feeling like a victim, out of feeling like we have to make something happen for it to be okay. Gratitude even takes us out of the third stage of consciousness, which is, it can only happen by happening through me. No, there's even a bigger way. And when we're in gratitude, it happens as us, almost in spite of us. And I could tell you stories about that too. But I think I've told my stories. But I want to ask you to ask yourself, if there's something that's powerful that's trying to move through you, I want you to go back to what I described as my garment industry story. Don't mind me, that's my language. And that is, you have to stop and say, okay, even if I've been working on this for a long time, I still have to know that my working on this for a long time has been building something in consciousness. That's the thing. Sometimes we think we're going to get from here to there, but to get over there, you know, guess what? We have to build something. We have to build a deeper knowing. We have to build a consciousness of allowing that to fulfill itself. There's something we're building in consciousness, so now it demonstrates, and it's interesting. My experience is many times when it demonstrates, it's almost like a byproduct. I know that sounds crazy, but it's true, because now we've built a consciousness of having, that we have everything we need, we are fulfilled in God. And now everything that comes along, it comes by grace. It just comes by grace. And I'm going to do a prayer in a minute here, but I want you to remember that my definition of grace is the givingness and givenness of God. The givingness and givenness of God. And that means it's already within you. It's been within you for all eternity. Just in all these stories, it was already there. And our work is always to open out a way for it to come forward, to fuel, to fire, to fund itself. Yes?
Yes.
All right, let's just take a minute. I have time for a prayer? All right. So I begin once again, as I say, in great gratitude for life. I go back to what was already said today, and I remind us all, don't give up. We are absolutely certain to stay true to the path of the divine. I take this moment as a God-ordained moment. I know it is the one power and the one life, the one presence, that which orchestrates all, in all, through all, as a greater identity of itself, that it is the life I am, and it is the life of the word spoken. I'm assured and confident because there is only one. It is the life of each one within the sound of my voice. And each one, there is a divine idea seeking magnificent, joyous, radical self-expression in form, in a way that is wondrous and awesome. So I speak the word as God's word of the I am. It is here, it is now, that there is living, vitalizing health, living, vitalizing wholeness. There is a power and a presence and an empowerment, a living presence of truth that is within each one. So, divine funding, the living fire of God fulfills itself. The living fuel of the infinite of unconditional love, it undergirds. It brings forward greater and greater and greater realizations of truth that allow for magnificent manifestations and demonstrations of every good and perfect thing that is the deepest desire of each heart here. So each one here is blessed, blessed, and very blessed. The blessing is pressed down and running over in myriad wondrous ways. I'm grateful to know this, to let it be, and to say, and so it is.
And so it is.
Amen.
Amen.
I'm going to invite, I think we have ushers to come forward, yes, at this time. And as you take your offering in your hand, and I know some of you may still be preparing your offering, so maybe just think about your offering, and we just take a moment, and we know that once again the fuel and the fire and the energy of unconditional love is what God is. And I speak the word and I bless each of us in our givingness and giveness. Know that we can never outgive God. So the offering that each of us has to give, we can give because God first gave us life. And then we return the favor by giving forth of God in this dimension. So I bless this offering. I know it's a benefit and a blessing for every life, for the one who gives, and for this beautiful center, this soul center that receives. It builds consciousness through loving grace. And for this I am grateful, and I let it be. Amen.
Amen.